There are 4 essential components to any posture or lordosis workout. And what we're going to do today is we're going to, first of all, summarize those 4 essential parts, and then we're going to look at them in a little bit more detail, which will then hopefully give you a better understanding of what a posture workout or a lordosis workout needs to look like. If you need help correcting lordosis, then please do just click the link below and you'll go through to my How to Correct Lordosis 12-week online program. It covers what we're going to cover in this tutorial today. It targets the specific muscles. It helps reposition the spine and reposition the pelvis, and it will help you gain a regular workout and a regular routine in building a better spine and a better pelvis posture to help you correct your lordosis. The 4 essential components are, first of all, some kind of massage and rolling. Now, these images down here aren't necessarily examples of what you need to do, but they will help us understand and give us context for what the components are all about and why we need to do them. Then comes the stretching, then some sort of mobility, and then finally, which is the last stage, is then the exercises. So it can also happen in this in these steps, so in this order. So it's all about getting these 4 components into the workout. So what we'll do now is we'll start looking at the first 2, foam rolling massage and stretching, and look at why we need to use it. So step 1 or component 1 is foam rolling / massage. So I've always described foam rolling as a bit like a dumbed down massage, but what it's essentially doing is it's making the tissues more pliable. So there's 2 examples that I can use. One is chewing gum, one is dough. Now, when we take a stick of chewing gum fresh out of the wrapper and we try and sort of stretch it from end to end or pull one end away from the other, it's quite rigid. It doesn't really move. So we would say there's not a great deal of pliability there, and it's quite stiff. That's what our muscles can be like when we go into a workout. So if we go straight to exercise or if we go straight to stretching, again, we're sort of in that sort of stiff, not really moving type of state. So what we need to do is we need to be able to mold the tissue to be able to get it more pliable so it can move. This is what the foam rolling does. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to target sort of areas at the front of the hip. Obviously, we've got one main muscle going down the front of the thigh, the rectus femoris. So we're trying to get these stiffer tissues. It could even be down the inside of the leg, but getting these stiffer tissues more pliable, so that when we chew that chewing gum or when we knead that dough, when we go to then pull it apart, it then stretches, it then changes shape, and what that's essentially doing is then we're able to then change the position of the pelvis and the spine. So we then move on to the stretching component or the stretch component. Now this encourages the tissues to lengthen. And this is why it's got to work in that order. If we stretch first and then do the foam rolling, we're trying to stretch stiff tissues, not really stretching them. And then if we foam roll them, we're making them pliable, but then we're not stretching them. So what we need to be able to do is then lengthen those tissues. So we've made them movable, made them pliable. We then lengthen them. What that then gives us the ability to do is move them properly. And then when it comes to changing the position of the pelvis and of the spine, if we've completed these 2 stages, we are then able to go about doing it that much more effectively. So we've got to follow these stages in this sort of process. If you haven't got a foam roller, I would suggest getting one. I have got videos on what you can do or what are the best foam rollers for you. But as a summary, softer ones will do the more superficial muscles and better for beginners. Harder, more knobbly ones are for deeper into the tissue and slightly more advanced people who have possibly done some foam rolling already, but the softer ones aren't really giving them the results that they need. Component 3, mobility. I've kind of been explaining this as I go along because these components overlap so much, and you're kind of doing one to get the most out of the next one. So we have the mobility. So this is to actively stretch it. So what we've done is we've we've in some respects passively stretched it just to get some length into it. What we're now doing is actively stretching and mobilizing the tissue. So what we're starting to do now is introduce movement into the equation. So what we're then doing is taking the hips through a range of movement. So we're then able to reposition them, which will then go about repositioning the spine. So we can then start using exercise as what is essentially a re-education of the tissues, of the muscles. Because unless you've got a specific type of lordosis, most posture is learned. So it's just then a case of relearning. But what we need to be able to do is get the tissues moving, so we've then got the space to relearn or to remove and position the pelvis and the spine into the position that we want. And then what happens is every time we repeat the we repeat the posture or the movement, it sends a signal from the brain to the muscles back up to the brain to basically say, I can move into this position. And then what the brain does is learns that it can move there, and then the more we repeat it, the more it ingrains it, and then the more it stores that posture or that position or that movement into the brain, and then it then starts to become more natural. So to start with, it will feel very unnatural, and what will feel natural is let's just say a bad posture, and what will feel unnatural is a good posture. But over time, as we practice it more, as we do it more, a bad posture will then become unnatural, and a good posture will become natural. So it's very much about taking these 4 stages and using them together, so you're able to then sort of build in that that engram or that motor program or whatever you want to call it into the brain, so it can then encourage the sort of the new posture habit, if you will. Now, the other thing that comes along with exercise, so as I've mentioned here, to encourage the tissues to use the newly formed posture. So that's what I've described already. Now, when we talk about exercise selection, which is another part of the 12-week program, where we start simple and then we build more complex. The reason we start simple, and we might use just like a simple exercise like the plank, is because it doesn't take a lot of skill to do it. So what we're able to focus on is the new posture. We're not trying to work these elaborate movements that will sort of pull us out of position, and because it's such an elaborate movement, we can't encourage the position. So what we want to do is just keep things simple to encourage the position, and then as we get used to the position, we get used to the exercise, our brain can then focus on more things, and then we can start using more elaborate types of movement to encourage the posture. So all we're trying to focus on is keeping the posture or the pelvis level and a natural curve through the lumbar spine. If we can do that, then that's, in some respects, the first stage to all of this. Once we've got that, we can then start encouraging new exercises, more complex exercises, so on and so forth. So as a summary, first of all, we want to foam roll. That gets it pliable. Then we want to stretch to add some more length so we can move into new positions. Then we use mobility to move into those new positions, and then we use exercises to ingrain it with repetition and the simple, more basic exercises to then be able to do it. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of what a posture workout needs to look like. If you want to just take this information and apply it to your own exercises, then by all means do it. If you want someone to sort of guide you along the way, click the link below, go through to the 12-week program, and you can get started today.